welcome to the deep dive. So today we're diving into this artificial general intelligence, AGI, and you know everyone's talking about it these days.
Yeah.
You sent over this Time article, and it's about how Silicon Valley is taking AGI so seriously. But the thing that really caught my eye was how Washington is reacting, or maybe not reacting to all of this.
Right. And I think for a lot of people, this whole AGI thing still feels like something out of science fiction.
Yeah.
But this article makes it clear that it's very much a reality that major tech companies are actively pursuing. And the potential consequences are, well, they're huge. I mean, we're talking about a fundamental shift in how our world works.
Okay, so let's break this down. First of all, what exactly I asked AGI? I
Yeah.
mean, we hear the term thrown around a lot, but it's still kind of fuzzy for a lot of us.
Yeah. So think of it this way. The AI we have today, it's like a really powerful calculator, right?
Okay.
It can process information and solve specific tasks really, really well. But you wouldn't expect a calculator to, like, understand a joke or write a screenplay, right? AGI, on the other hand, that's like having a mind that can learn and adapt to any situation, just like a human can, except potentially much faster and more efficiently.
So not just better AI, but a whole different kind of AI.
Exactly. It's about AI becoming capable of basically anything a human mind can do, and maybe even more.
Okay, now that is both amazing and kind of terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, and what's even more unsettling is this Time article suggests some experts believe we're really only a few years, maybe even less, away from this becoming a reality.
Okay, so this is actually happening right now.
It is.
And the article really struck a nerve with me because it goes beyond just the tech world, right?
Yeah.
Like it dives into how Washington is finally starting to pay attention to all of this.
It is. And, it's interesting because for a long time, politicians and policymakers kind of dismissed AGI as, something out there, something for the distant future. But this Time article highlights how that's starting to change, particularly with this recent Senate Judiciary Subcommittee hearing.
Okay, so tell me about this hearing. This is where it gets really interesting because the article mentions whistleblowers, right? Like people who've worked at these major AI companies coming forward to testify.
Yeah, and that's what's really unusual, right? These aren't just critics on the outside. We're talking about people who've been on the inside, working at places like OpenAI, and they're raising some serious red flags about what they've seen.
Like what? Give me an example.
So one of the most alarming claims came from a former OpenAI employee named William Saunders, and he basically warned that AGI could be used for some really, really bad stuff.
Okay, like what kind of bad stuff are we talking about here?
He mentioned things like large-scale cyber attacks that could cripple entire systems, and even, chillingly, the potential for creating biological weapons.
Okay, now that is straight out of a nightmare scenario. We're not just talking about robots taking our jobs here. This is like existential threat kind of stuff. And it sounds like even the people who are building these systems are scared of how powerful they're becoming.
That's right. And the Saunders guy, he didn't hold back. He even talked about how lax security measures were at OpenAI. He claimed that for a while, at least, employees could have basically just walked out with advanced AI systems.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's a chilling thought because it really highlights this potential for things to go wrong very, very quickly and for this technology to fall into the wrong hands.
And if someone can just walk off with an AI system like that, who knows what they could do with it? That's terrifying. It makes you wonder about the level of responsibility these companies are really taking.
Absolutely. And this really speaks to a broader point that the article emphasizes, which is that the U.S. just doesn't have a strong, comprehensive regulatory framework in place for AGI. It's like we're building this incredibly powerful engine, but we're not putting any brakes or a steering wheel on it.
So we've got Silicon Valley racing to develop AGI. We've got whistleblowers sounding the alarm about potential dangers. And we've got Washington, well, it sounds like they're playing catch-up.
Yeah, and that is a recipe for disaster if I've ever heard one. And, it's interesting, right? Because this whole thing, it's not just about, like, technology running amok.
Yeah.
It's about human nature, too. It's about ambition, this desire to push the boundaries, maybe even a little bit of arrogance, thinking we can control something this powerful. And then on the other side, you have these whistleblowers who are, like, driven by their conscience, willing to risk their careers, to speak out, to try to warn us.
It's like a whole ethical drama playing out in the tech world.
Right.
And speaking of ethics, one of the things that really jumped out at me in the article was how much they focused on the potential impact of AGI on jobs.
Oh, yeah, that's the big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you can easily imagine a future where machines are capable of doing so many of the jobs that humans do now.
Totally. And the article really lays that out. Everything from like truck drivers to, like you said, even creative jobs like writers and designers. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of scary.
Yeah. And it's easy to get caught up in the fear of it all, right? The robots are coming for our jobs.
Exactly.
But the article also points out that just like any major technological shift, AGI is also likely to create entirely new industries, new job categories that we can't even imagine right now.
Right, like trying to explain the internet to someone back in the 1950s.
Exactly. So it's less about being replaced and more about like adapting to this like rapidly changing landscape.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we adapt? Because honestly, it feels pretty overwhelming to think about.
Well, one thing the article really emphasizes is the importance of education and retraining programs.
Okay.
Like imagine programs specifically designed to help people transition into these new, as yet undefined job roles, or to teach people how to work effectively alongside AI systems.
It's like we need to learn how to like dance with the robots instead of trying to run away from them.
Exactly. And this isn't just about individual responsibility either, right? Governments, schools, even private companies, they all have a role to play in making this transition smoother, helping people prepare for this new world.
So it's like we can't stop this from happening, but we can at least try to be ready for it.
Right, because the consequences of not being ready are just too big to ignore.
And that brings us back to this whole issue of regulation. Like, we really dropped the ball on social media, and that's really messing things up now.
Yeah.
We can't let that happen with AGI.
I agree. And the article makes a very strong case for why Washington needs to take this seriously, like right now, and establish some clear guardrails for AGI development.
So what would those guardrails look like? What kind of specific things are they talking about?
Well, the article highlights a few key areas where regulation is like desperately needed. Number one is transparency.
Okay.
We need to know who's developing what, how powerful these systems are becoming, and what safeguards are in place to prevent misuse.
So no more shadowy AI labs building things in secret.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then there's the issue of security. Like we talked about earlier, you can't have people just walking off with this stuff.
Right. Like nuclear launch codes.
Right. We need strong protocols in place to prevent unauthorized access, whether it's from, a rogue employee or a hostile government.
Makes sense.
And finally, and this is a big one, there's the question of public engagement.
Yeah.
Like, this can't just be a conversation happening behind closed doors in Silicon Valley or in Washington. This is a societal issue, and we need to be having open and honest conversations with the public about what AGI means for all of us.
So true. This is going to impact everyone, not just the tech people. We all deserve a say in how this plays out.
Exactly. And while it might be tempting to kind of just leave it to the experts to figure this out, the truth is we all have a stake in this.
It really does feel like we're like on the edge of something huge here. And this Time article, it does a good job of laying out the stakes.
Yeah, it really does. And it makes you think, right, if the people who are actually building this technology are concerned enough to speak out, shouldn't the rest of us be paying even more attention?
For sure. I mean, these whistleblowers are putting a lot on the line to warn us about what they've seen. They're saying, hey, this is serious.
They are. And it's really a wake-up call for all of us, right? This isn't just some abstract problem for, like, governments and tech companies to solve. We all have a responsibility to understand what's happening and to make our voices heard.
Totally. So for people listening who are like, okay, this is kind of freaking me out, what can I actually do? What would you say?
Well, first of all, I'd say don't panic. Okay? Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Learn as much as you can about this stuff. There are tons of resources out there, books, articles, other podcasts even, that can help you understand what AGI is, what the potential benefits and risks are.
So become informed.
Exactly. And then talk about it. Don't keep it to yourself. Share what you're learning with your friends, your family, your coworkers.
Yeah, get those conversations going.
Exactly. The more people who understand what's at stake here, the better.
And you know what? Don't be afraid to reach out to your elected officials either. Let them know that this is something you care about, that you want to see responsible regulation and oversight of this technology.
Right, because this is the case where, like, public pressure can really make a difference.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got to learn more, talk about it more, and get involved.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, this technology has the power to reshape the world in some really fundamental ways. And it's up to all of us to make sure that it's used for good.
So let's all try to build the future we want, not the future we're afraid of. That's it for our deep dive today. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.